Someone is out there right now who despises you and is proud of themselves for letting you escape their grip. They got you, they loved you, and they didn't take advantage of the circumstance. They are currently sitting in a state of regret, watching you flourish from a distance, unable to break free from a cosmic familial scenario in which they are trapped, dealing with the consequences of their decisions, and bound by karmic chains that they created. The universe delivered precisely what they deserved. You are emancipated and prospering, while others are unable to change the situation despite observing everything. Your freedom resulted from their reality and death, which is how energy works. You should let them wallow in their sadness while you continue to climb. When you interfere with someone amazing, every night, they wake up sweating, thumping their chest, catching, and with their eyes wide open to the blackness that surrounds them. This is due of memories, not nightmares. Memories of you. They hadn't expected feeling this way. Never. Nonetheless, the universe has a way of bringing truth to even the most reluctant hearts. And the truth consumes them from the inside out. They didn't expect to feel this way. Keep in mind how they ejected you and treated your devotion as if it were nothing. The way they regarded you in the eyes conveyed that what you supplied was inadequate, as were you. They not only lied to you, but also to themselves. And now that untruth has become the poison they ingest on a regular basis. Every hour and every goddamn minute. Owing to the fact that they are now aware and understand that losing you is not a random decision. A moment they don't recall, or a tiny fault that time will soon erase. The cosmic tipping point was not you. It was the loss of you. Their whole lives. The moment the constellations reorganized themselves, their fate was engraved into a pattern from which they could not escape. You were the most important decision. You were the only option open to them, and they chose the wrong one. Now look at them. They are locked in a cosmic cycle that threatens to demolish their own soul on a daily basis. Every morning, they wake up and put on their family-approved mask. They do meaningless gestures. Every night, they lay in bed, pondering, staring at ceilings that seem like jail bars. Unbeknownst to you, guilt follows them wherever they go. It sits next to them during family gatherings, forcing them to smile and nod in response to conversations that seem to be spoken in a foreign language, and at board meetings. It follows them around and forces them to make decisions that will result in a legacy in which they no longer believe. When everyone else has gone home and there is no one else to perform for, it awaits them in parking lots that have remained empty throughout their lives. Regret has been their constant companion, their sole, true connection. And the only thing that seems real in a life based completely on them is that they are dishonest. The worst part, the worst aspect of all, they deserve every second of their pain. They have earned their pain by rejecting the greatest gift the universe has ever given them, which is your love. In order to obtain the favor of those who have never seen things in their real form. To understand why they failed, we must first understand where they came from. Their story did not begin with rejection. Rather, servitude began with their first breath. Invisible cords were wrapped around their soul. These chains encompassed expectations, prestige, and traditional expectations for their home. These weren't just words. Rather, they regarded law as sacred and unchanging. They didn't rear children. Instead, they established legacies for future generations. They programmed brains rather than fostering hearts. Love was never unconditional. Acceptance was something that needed to be earned, and freedom was never free. Their father would remind them to remember who they were, which meant remembering whose they were. Remember that you are ours. Remember that your goal is to serve the family name. Their mother would murmur, "Think about what people will say." This implies that being your true self is perilous. That is true when contrasted to our collective reputation. Your individual satisfaction is meaningless, and your desires are a cause of embarrassment. They grew up watching relatives who chose love over duty being excluded from family photos, tales, and memories. They also saw the isolation of siblings who dared to defy their parents. Growing up, they were taught that divergence meant death, not death of the body, but death of belonging. And belonging was the most essential thing in the world. Learning allowed them to adjust to the extent to which they had buried their genuine selves, to the point where they had forgotten where they had hidden them. They accomplished precisely what was expected of them. They became the perfect heir, the pure representation, and the empty vessel full of nothing but pride for the family blessed by his favor. Select Super. Thank you, and please consider giving $100 or more to help spread his light. Your gift sows seeds that grow his kingdom. You with your uncontrollable laughter that echoed through rooms like forbidden music. You with your eyes that saw through every mask they'd ever worn. And you with your love that demanded nothing but truth in return. You terrified them because loving you meant rediscovering a part of yourself that had been buried. The act of loving you forced them to ignore every lesson they had ever learned. It forced them to sacrifice all they had been persuaded was vital in exchange for a single, brief, wonderful moment on the verge of liberation. Your hand stretched to them, giving them a route out of the life that was slowly killing them all while also protecting them from it. They just needed to do one thing: choose you and get everything. However, the shackles were too tight, the training was too intense, and the fear was too great. As a consequence, they prioritized responsibility above emotion. They decided to meet their family's expectations above your unconditional love. They chose the incarceration they were accustomed with over the freedom they feared. And that decision has become their punishment. The familial connections they once treasured now seem like chains. They now regard the rituals they formerly held dear as control tools. The history that they were so eager to preserve is now seen as little more than generational pain handed down like a strange inheritance. Every holiday gathering seems like a performance that they are obligated to deliver. Every family photo hides the screaming that occurs inside their minds. Every toast to family, above all, makes them want to break their glass and use the shards to liberate themselves. But they're unable to do so. You aren't here by coincidence. Feel the pull tap. Join to discover the truth, your purpose, and a tribe that understands. This is more than just a membership. It's your call, because the chains were not merely positioned around them. Rather, they were built into them. Their very bones are shaped by the demands of their families. Their blood flows in accordance with the needs of their forefathers. And their brains were shaped by generations of toxic habits that they are currently repeating inside themselves. This would imply that they would not only lose their family, but also the only identity they had ever known. Even if they are aware of the repercussions, they are unsure whether or not they have the courage to tackle the gap. Consider how sad, egotistical, and foolish they were in believing that they were immune to the messy vulnerability of true love. They were able to convince themselves that emotions were reserved for individuals with weaker souls, and that their intellectual life was somehow better to your emotional one. They told themselves, feelings dissipate. Family is always a comedy. However, they have realized that family without love is nothing more than a business transaction based on biological ties. They had realized that their so-called power was nothing more than elaborate fear dressed in elegant clothing. They didn't have any real living arrangements, but they had everything planned out, including their 5-year plan, career trajectory, acceptable partner checking list, and retirement strategy. All of this was completely in line with their family's expectations. After that, you shattered the reality that they had painstakingly built. Your questions were ones they were unable to answer. It was the things their family had told them were worthless that you found precious. You valued the parts of them that they had been told to conceal. You made them mistrust everything. And the inquiry seemed like weakness. It felt like failure. And it seemed like a betrayal of everything they had been raised to defend. But you caused them to doubt everything. It's a cosmic irony that they were doing the exact opposite of what they thought they were doing when they publicly, mercilessly, and definitively rejected you. They believed they were demonstrating their strength, independence, and dedication to the ideals that they had been nurtured, despite the fact that they were demonstrating their weakness, their inability to resist the pressure from their family, their alliance, and their frantic need for approval from their family, as well as their fear of living an authentic life. They are powerless to undo what has been done. They are powerless to retract the words that wound you. They are unable to reverse the decision that defined them. This realization is terrible since they cannot reverse their previous deeds at this moment. They are burdened with the awareness that they have failed both you and themselves. Each day that passes causes them to sink further into the earth, making it more difficult for them to breathe, move, and just exist. It also makes it harder for them to get about. And what more do you know? They deserve every ounce of their agony. They are too proud to admit their mistake to the public, too proud to express their pain to their family, and too proud to admit that the life they chose is slowly killing them. The pride that drove them to reject your love has now become the pride that keeps them bound. Pride is their fatal flaw, their ultimate tragedy. The character flaw that lost them everything and left them with just hollow accolades and successes. Pride is their deadly weakness. They remember the look on your face as they turned their backs on you, just as your heart started to shut and your hand, which had been extended to you, closed again. They remember the brightness in your eyes, wane, when you realized they weren't. They're going to choose you. These memories continue to haunt them. They may see them in their dreams. They are presented with reflective surfaces when they least expect it. It talks to them in the silence of the moment, when they are unable to distract their attention with work or chores, or with the boring routine of the life they have chosen. The reminiscence implies that you may have experienced love, freedom, and truth instead of what you did. You might have had any of these things. They decided to be proud, and now pride is all they have left. It is a cold and empty friend that offers no comfort, pleasure, or importance. It's just a never-ending flood of reminders of what they've abandoned or discarded. They never thought you could achieve without them. This was the peak of their hubris, believing that you needed them and that their rejection would somehow diminish you. They were totally incorrect. They are now keeping a watch on you from the shadows of social media, via pals you share and glimpses into places you and they used to frequent together. They see you growing, glowing, and evolving into a look. You already know that the game is rigged. And if you pay closely, you will see that the edges are growing closer, changing the definition of success and embracing the concept of happiness. Despite the fact that you have created a life that is entirely your own, the reality is becoming more clear with each post, update, and second-hand tale of your delight. You were never the person who needed their help. Rather, they were the ones who needed your help. They frequently write letters late at night, when the mask slips and the anguish becomes too much to bear. These letters are secretly lengthy admissions, rambling confessions, desperate apologies, and heartfelt pleas for another chance, but they are never sent. They still feel a great sense of pride mixed with remorse. Pride drives them to keep their finger hovering over the submit button without really hitting it. Pride forces them to suppress the want to utter the words that may perhaps set them free. Aside from that, they are aware of the current situation. Even if they had the courage to make contact, the door had been closed, secured, and sealed. There is no such thing as a limitless amount of chances. Once turned down, they may never come again. This knowledge is possibly the cruelest component of their punishment. They are forced to watch you bloom without ever being able to share in your brilliance again, to observe what might have been, but never be able to make it a reality. The grief they feel is unspeakable, intimate, and complete. Meanwhile, the life they chose to live instead of you, one that was supposed to fill them with happiness, approbation, and a feeling of belonging, has become a noose around their neck. And it's becoming tighter with each passing day. Their family, for whom they made the sacrifice of your love, now seems like a weight they can't bear anymore. The expectations are never fulfilled. The criticism is never satisfied, and the control is never allowed to slip. Every success is met with curiosity about what comes next. Every decision is challenged, and every moment of joy is tempered with reminders of duties. It is becoming more difficult for them to find meaning in their career, which is the prestigious position they chose over building a life with you. They go through the motions, earn plaudits, and advance up the ranks. But to what end? And for whose advantage are they doing all of this? The task that once seemed important to them now seems to be nothing more than a complex diversion from the emptiness that resides inside them. They have empty performances and lifeless feelings in their relationships, which are proper partnerships with individuals that their family approves of. Because every contact is judged against their memories of you, and every touch serves as a reminder of your absence. It's hard to believe they don't feel this way when every conversation seems like shadow play and compared to the raw honesty they shared with you. Nothing works any longer. Nothing satisfies. Nothing satisfies. Nothing takes away from the nagging sensation that they chose the incorrect route. A tragic and irrevocable journey. The traits they formerly thought were their strengths, their ability to conform, please, and sacrifice, have now been shown to be the bars of their prism. And no matter how much they shake those bars, they cannot break free, since the true prison is not their family, work, or social circle. Rather, the ultimate jail is the decision they made to forego honesty in pursuit of approval, which occurred when they rejected you. Their spirit is restricted, their alternatives are limited, and their soul is smothered as a consequence of this decision, which has been ingrained in the fabric of their existence. As a result, a cosmic web emerges, from which no one can escape. Each thread of this web becomes tighter with each passing day. It represents the justice of the universe. This is your karma. The cosmos is reflecting back to them precisely what they have sent out into the world, namely the rejection of truth, which is returned to them as inevitable falsity. It's like if someone who has been asleep for a long time is suddenly waking up from a lifelong dream. They are starting to look beyond the illusions they were raised with. The curtain is lifting, revealing the mechanism that powers the enchantment and exposing the deception that lies behind its meaning. When they examine their father's knowledge for what it really is, they discover fear disguised as tradition. Their mother's leadership is seen by them as control disguised as affection, and they recognize it for what it is. When they examine the ideals that their family maintains, they recognize them for what they really are: chains masquerading as beliefs, recognizing the significance of sacrifice and the power that was lost. The awakening is harsh, perplexing, and necessary because everyone suddenly realizes what you have always known. Genuine power is not inherited, but rather produced. It does not begin with family names, money, accounts, or social ties. Rather, it stems from sincerity. This courage and the choice an issue. Although they believed they were doing the right thing, taking the right path, and making the appropriate sacrifices, they observed how they lost authority. Piece by piece, year after year. How they sacrificed their freedom, pleasure, and very identities. What a cosmic folly. What a horrible waste of resources. The question that haunts them in every peaceful moment is what would have happened if they had chosen love. This newfound clarity carries with it the question that has plagued them. Were they going to wake up next to you right now in a home built on reality rather than anticipation? If they had picked you, how much would they be following ambitions that really meant to them, with your unwavering conviction acting as a source of support? Will individuals learn how to offer and receive love without any conditions or calculations? They are haunted by the possibilities, which include glimpses of an alternate timeline in which they were brave enough to grasp your hand, strong enough to break generational norms, and worthy of the love you delivered. However, no amount of awakening, no matter how deep, can reverse the course of time knowledge. It is not possible to reverse previously established decisions, no matter how extensive they are. Their awareness came too late. There is also a sense of cosmic justice here. Understanding does not imply freedom in and of itself. Rather, the consciousness of one's incarceration may make the confinement even more miserable. This is because knowing may be the first step toward liberation. This enlightenment comes in waves, tsunamis of understanding that threaten to drown them due to their severity. While at a family event, they will nod their heads in accord as they have done hundreds of times before. The absurdity of the scenario will suddenly strike them with such force that they will be unable to remain quiet, as the emptiness of the conversation becomes so obvious that they struggle to keep from shouting across the expensive restaurant table. They will go on yet another loveless date with someone who meets all of their family's expectations. They will be going through the motions required of them as they prepare for another day of faultless performance. They will be looking at their reflection while tying the appropriate tie or applying the perfect cosmetics. They will suddenly be unable to identify the person gazing back. Who is this individual? This stranger is mimicking a human being. This empty shell goes through programmed movements. And this phony facsimile of a person has all been witnessed. This is the person they have decided to be, which is a devastating response because they prioritize acceptance above love. Expect the country to come first, followed by truth and terror, then bravery. They went through the rejection process, which led to the development of their personality. They occasionally fantasize about finding you, falling to their knees in front of you, admitting everything, including the fear that drove them to reject you, the remorse that has consumed them ever since, and the love that has never died despite their best efforts to eradicate it. In these dreams, you listen, comprehend, and forgive. You open your arms and welcome them back, giving them another chance that they recognize they do not deserve. Despite their greatest fantasies, they are conscious of their own selfishness. They understand the sense of entitlement, even in their most desperate imaginations. They are cognizant of reality. The door is closed no matter how much they have changed, how clearly they see now, how sincerely they regret, or how fully they have woken. Certain judgments are irreversible, and destroyed bridges cannot be restored. The link that used to exist between you, that uncommon and valuable thread of true recognition, has been broken. This isn't due to time or distance. Rather, it is the result of their actions, their decisions, and their rejection of what was true in favor of what was expected. They may still be pulled to you, like a compass needle perpetually pointing north, like a sunflower, continually turning toward light, like a tide, and always reacting to the moon's pull. But the only way back to you is via memories, nightmares, and the pain of what if. This is their karma, to live in full consciousness of what they have lost, to bear the weight of their decision during days that seem more pointless, to know precisely what they bargained away and be powerless to reclaim it. The universe runs on the principle of perfect balance. What you send out into the world returns to you twice. What you deny returns to you as absence, and what you reject becomes something you will never be able to own again. They spew terror, fear of being honest, fear of being vulnerable, fear of rebelling against familial constraints. And now they live surrounded by terror, which pervades every part of their lives. Fear of not finding love again, fear of wasting their whole lives, fear of dying without genuinely living. They have started sending out rejections, rejection of your honesty, affection, and real giving. And now they are facing rejection in ways they never expected. Rejection from inside represents their actual nature. Rebels against the prison they have created face rejection from outside, as true ties remain unattainable inside their artificial world.